I decided to make this video for trans and non-binary Canadians who want to know more about gender affirmation benefits in the workplace, as well as an education piece for people who are responsible for employer-sponsored health plans, such as Director of HR, VP of Finance, CFO, Head of People and Culture, that sort of thing, business owners, entrepreneurs, as well for the employee benefits consultant or life insurance advisor who was working with small, mid-sized, and large-sized businesses and wants to understand how they can better support their clients, the plan members, their spouses, and the dependents. If that sounds like you, if you want to know more about gender affirmation benefits in the Canadian workplace, stick around and let's get at it. Hi, my name is Kate Madden, and I live on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people that we call Vancouver, British Columbia. My channel is meant to be a resource. When I started transition in my late 30s, I noticed a lack of resource for trans people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and just trying to build community and capacity within that group. I decided to make this video because I've been in employee benefits now for a little more than 15 years, going on 16 years now. And I've seen a lot of different things happen over that time. For example, the patent expiration back in 2010 of Lipitor and that sort of thing, and all the generics that became available in the marketplace at that time. I've seen the introduction of high-cost specialty drugs, and lately, there's more of a focus on benefits that support diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace for the employee, for the spouse of the employee, and for their children. And one of the ways that employers are asking for this and insurance companies are responding is through gender affirmation benefits in the workplace. I wanted to explain just my experiences, as my lived experiences as a transgender Canadian in the workplace, someone who's accessed the benefits, someone who sold the benefits, someone who helped design the benefits, and as someone who's had a chance to work with benefit consultants and employers in implementing the benefits across Canada. If you're trans or non-binary and you're wondering, oh my gosh, how do I get access to this? What is this? Who's offering it? How much does it cost? Don't worry, I got you. I'm going to go into a little bit of an explanation, kind of benefits 101, kind of to help you advocate for yourself or your spouse or your children in the workplace, and maybe give you just a better idea of what's available or how to seek that out and work with people who can introduce that into your workplace. Everything I share in this video is public knowledge. Nothing's proprietary. Nothing's being shared from knowledge I've gained in working with different employers or looking at different employee benefits plans out there. So this is all publicly available information that I'm sharing. To that end, if you work somewhere and your employer has made a press release or shared something publicly about the coverage that's available to you in your workplace, feel free to share. And I think if you're American and you're still watching at this point, thank you so much, or British, please share in the comments below. I know Starbucks in America is one of the most well-known names of benefits coverage for trans and non-binary people in America, but feel free to share American companies that have gender affirmation benefits in the workplace. I'm focusing on Canadian employee benefits because I live in Canada, because it's my expertise, and it's because I feel I can actually share that expertise with the Canadian trans and non-binary community. So please share below. I will share as much as I can over time as well. So really quickly, if you're someone who's never heard of gender dysphoria before, or you're curious as to how this is impacting your employees or your clients in the workplace, gender dysphoria is not a mental illness, it's a health condition. This is recognized by the World Health Organization, this is recognized by the World Professional Association of Transgender Health Professionals, and really, quite simply, it's the term used to describe the distress that somebody feels in their head when their gender identity doesn't match the sex they were assigned at birth. So in my case, I was assigned male at birth. I knew from a very early age that, oh my gosh, something was wrong. And I kind of compare it to having a car crash going off in the back of your head, constantly. And having that constant experience of gender dysphoria, the anxiety that it induces, really did impact me in the workplace. It impacted me in my home life. It impacted me in dealing with clients. It impacted me in dealing with coworkers tremendously. In that, I wasn't really present. It was disassociation as well, if you will. Trans and non-binary people can be subjected to harassment and discrimination in the workplace. This can be something such as jokes or slurs in the lunchroom, or in the fab shop, or out in the field, something like that. Oftentimes there can be a lack of acceptance, and this can impact people and create a hostile work environment. There are a lot of businesses out there that just do not have HR policies. And when you consider how many small and mid-sized businesses there are in the country, how many of the ones that do have HR policies in place have inclusive policies? And do those policies address the need of trans and non-binary employees? Things such as washrooms, gender-neutral washrooms, for example. Another example could be dress codes. How does that impact a non-binary person or a trans person who's early in transition? And while this video is about gender affirmation benefits in the workplace, a lot of workplaces don't offer gender affirmation benefits. And so, that's a key example of a roadblock that is faced by trans and non-binary Canadians in facing the care that they need. Unconscious bias, internalized transphobia, this could be something that impacts hiring. I've experienced it 100%. I've experienced it just over the years. I was unemployed for a while, went through dozens of interviews, and, there were a couple of them where 100% it was transphobia. Like, there's no question. And what I mean by internalized transphobia or unconscious bias is, they might be like, well, we're going to do her a favor and we're not going to hire her into this role where she needs to engage with this type of client, like, honey, I came out in Alberta. I'm going to be okay. I promise. It's not always about pronouns either, but misgendering is something that a lot of trans and non-binary people face, especially in the workplace. Being misgendered, quite simply, especially if it's deliberate, is hurtful, humiliating, and it really contributes to feelings of separation and just isolation in the workplace. They're just some examples of discrimination faced by trans and non-binary Canadians in the workplace, and how ultimately they can impact mental health, how they can also impact physical health, and how it can be difficult for people to succeed and excel and thrive in the workplace, where perhaps they're afraid to be themselves fully and authentically and share themselves and give themselves and, earn a living. And for all these reasons, it's important for employers to offer safe and inclusive workplaces. And one of the ways they can do that is through the introduction of gender affirmation benefits. At its root source, gender affirmation benefits are life-saving. There are numerous studies out there that discuss the impact of gender affirmation procedures and how they address suicidality in trans and non-binary people. There's when somebody is not able to access coverage, when somebody is not able to access procedures, it can be overwhelming, and mental health issues can compound. They can develop into physical musculoskeletal issues. They can lead to long-term disability claims. They can lead to increased drug usage, prescription drug usage, and that can impact your benefits plan. The most common gender affirmation procedure, process, thing in the Canadian marketplace is hormone replacement therapy. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is something that is kind of the most simple, easiest, and usually the first point of access for someone seeking gender affirmation care. It eases that sense of dysphoria. And I've talked a little bit about dysphoria in this video. And while dysphoria can be a part of the experience of a trans and non-binary person, you don't need dysphoria to be trans or non-binary. And so, that's something to keep in mind when you're designing your benefits plan. And without access to HRT, trans folks, non-binary folks, seeking blockers, seeking cross-sex hormones, it can lead to distress, mental distress. And the drugs in question are older drugs, 30 years old, 40 years old. They've been around a while. There's nothing novel about them or even costly. So something to consider that's probably already in your benefit plan as part of the formulary in place with your plan. In Canada, a lot of the surgeries, at the basic level are covered by the provinces, and the coverage differs from province to province. So at time of recording, Yukon has the most comprehensive coverage for trans and non-binary people. It includes facial feminization surgery. Here in British Columbia, bottom surgery is covered for trans people. Top surgery if somebody wants the removal of their breasts, as well as breast augmentation for someone who perhaps has been on HRT for a while. There hasn't been enough breast development. Not every trans or non-binary person will seek surgery, and our experiences are more than just being reduced to surgery, just to be very clear. And a lot of what we can do through the introduction of gender affirmation benefits can help with that. I think the easiest thing to do for trans people, and for all people, we know that the leading cause of disability in this country is anxiety, depression. And just a real simple question to ask yourself is my benefit plan comprehensive enough to address the needs of all my employees and their spouses and their dependents? Is 80% coverage to $300 a year, is that going to be enough to help somebody, or to be proactive, or to manage through the work that they need to do? And for trans non-binary folks, can be difficult. There can be a lot of things to work through, especially if they're older perhaps and they've been closeted for a long time. And the enhanced mental health coverage that you can introduce is something that can really have a tremendous impact, on them and their personal life, but also, in terms of the productivity in the workplace as well. I get clocked on the regular, pretty visibly trans, and I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not trying to be anything other than what I am. And, I can do a whole video on queer liberation philosophy. Assimilation is not liberation. I'm not trying to fit in and be anyone other than myself. However, not everyone feels that way. And the introduction of gender affirmation benefits can help people live a life that they feel is normal. It can reduce harassment, perceived harassment. It can reduce discrimination, if they were passing, so to speak. And, it just helps people live their life fully and authentically. And, through that, leads to better mental health outcomes and lower risk of someone unaliving themselves. In Canada, just about every benefit plan out there is delivered via an insurance advisor. A benefit consultant, for example, who works at a consulting firm such as Mercer, Aon, Towers Watson, Gallagher, and so on. Or, maybe it's your dad's buddy down the street who's done his life insurance for 20 years. And works with a few mom and pop shops. Also, there's a huge network of independent benefit consultants and insurance advisors across the country that have run successful firms for decades now, all over the country, coast to coast. And almost exclusively, insurance companies work with these advisors or require the engagement of an advisor. I have worked on some direct cases in years past. I've literally worked on hundreds of benefit plans over the last 15 years, and maybe a handful, maybe seven of those cases were without an advisor. And even those larger ones where maybe you have a team of HR professionals dedicated to the benefits plan, managing the disability, so on and so forth, they still will engage a benefits consultant on an hourly basis to either manage the procurement process for the benefits plan, to manage the advising of the to manage the any of the consultation that needs to occur. They're benefits consultants after all, or just to engage and advocate with the insurance carrier. And that's just how the Canadian landscape is. There are some places out there that are third-party administrators, and perhaps you can go direct with them. Association plans, you can go direct with them. However, the background is the association or the third-party administrator is the middle body, the government. I gotta find a more inclusive way to say middleman. There is one. If there's one out there, leave it in the comments. But you're still not direct with the insurance carrier, is what I'm trying to say. And so I think, for trans people and non-binary people who want to understand who they need to get on board to implement benefits, gender affirmation benefit plans in the workplace, or to start engaging their employers, they need to understand the role of benefit consultants. And then as benefit consultants as well, you need to understand what's out there, what's happening, who are the different carriers who are offering it. So at time of recording, Sun Life, Green Shield, Equitable, Beneva, Desjardins, Medivie. These are ones that spring to mind kind of off the top of my head. Other places like Pacific Blue Cross, they've got a blurb on their website at time of recording in winter 2023 saying that their systems and their underwriting processes, while they want to do it, it just doesn't accommodate it at this point. There might be other carriers out there in the near future or in the long future, if you're watching this years from now, who will introduce this or have introduced it. Please leave a note in the comments, hyperlink to their public notice, their news release or what have you. There are some other circumstances where larger employers, and I think a big one would be the federal government, has that. So federal government is covered by Canada Life, and they're introducing gender affirmation benefits this spring, I believe, is my understanding. So in that case, that's a decision the employer has made, and they've got the insurer on board through the funding method. They probably use some sort of ASO model, retention. I don't know what they use. I know nothing about that plan, but they've made that decision. TD is another one that talks about their benefits in the workplace for trans and non-binary people. At time of recording, to my knowledge, they're covered by Manulife. They've had this for years, and they've talked about this at length. I've been at events, and again, that's a choice that they've made as an employer, and they're funding it through something called administrative services. So what that means is the employer is paying the insurance carrier for the administration of the benefit plan, for procedures, processes, things that are covered under the Income Tax Act as eligible health expenses. And they just pay, kind of cost plus. So let's say, it's $1 for this drug. They're paying $1.10 to the insurance carrier. Insurance carrier keeps the 10 cents. The dollar goes back to the employer. Versus the other common type of funding out there is non-refund. And that's where the employers don't have as much choice in terms of what's to be covered, what's not to be covered, in that the insurance carrier covers the risk. So they say, okay, we're going to charge you, $500 this year for benefits, and if you spend more than $500, that's on us. We can't go back and recoup that as they could in ASO, but they can change the rate. They renew it for the year after, and conversely, if the employer doesn't use the $500, let's say they only use $250, they can't say to the insurance carrier, give me back my $250. I hope that makes sense. But essentially, the person who really helps everyone get through this is the benefit consultant, the insurance advisor, who helps manage this. So I think it's super important for benefit consultants to know what's covered by the different provinces, whether that be facial feminization surgery, bottom surgery, vaginoplasty, phalloplasty, mediodoplasty, top surgery, breast augmentation, so on and so forth. As well, it can be super difficult, for employees to access benefits in the workplace, gender affirmation benefits in the workplace. Like, normally speaking, it can be a challenge as is, and then you introduce this on top of it. And so, I'll just give you an example of the first time I tried to access gender affirmation benefits in the workplace. My employer at the time made a huge splash on the intranet, the company website. It's like, we're doing this, we're introducing this, and there's a list of all the available procedures and what the dollar amounts were, and I was just like, wow. And I wasn't out of the closet yet. And so, a key thing to remember is, does the benefit package that you're introducing for trans and non-binary people, does it have a requirement for them to be out? Like, do they need to have approval from the province? Do they need to be living out as themselves? Or can they be in the early stages and get things done when it's just them and their doctor, perhaps? And so there I was, super happy, curious, interested. Only a few people knew. I was in the process of starting my medical transition, and I called the 1-800 number. Called the 1-800 number, said, am I covered for whatever it was I asked about? No, sir. We don't know what you're talking about, sir. And, I was still too early. I was still male presenting at the time, so I wasn't too busted up over, the honorific being involved. But, it was soul crushing to me, absolutely soul crushing, in that here's my company that was talking about gender affirmation benefits. Here I was trying to get information on gender affirmation benefits, and that's where it stopped. So for months, I didn't do anything with that. Because who am I going to go talk to? Am I going to go talk to my boss? I haven't come out to them yet. Am I going to talk to Joe at the water cooler? Well, no, I haven't. Certainly not. I don't know the number for HR. I don't know who my HR business partner is. And so, that can present a significant barrier and roadblock to accessing care, as if, as the insurance carrier, there isn't a proper rollout, even just to the claims team. Some examples of ways that people can help support trans and non-binary folks access this care is just talk about it. Like, let people know it's there. Let them know what's covered as well. Honey, there's so much out there. Like, I could make a checklist of surgeries I could get. I don't necessarily need them personally, but others might. I've only ever personally actually used gender affirmation benefits for hair removal on my face. That's it. I've accessed the benefit multiple times over the last few years for that. I'm going to say $3,000 worth of coverage on my face, maybe $4,000. And it's been life-changing for me, absolutely life-changing for me to have this and not be stressed about, doing a finalist presentation with a potential client and do they see my 5 o'clock shadow, or how is my foundation too thick, that sort of thing. But even here I am, an expert. And, I just gave that last example, but I've had issues where the claim's been denied. No, we don't cover that. It's been punched back. And so it was $700 for electrolysis, and how am I going to pay rent? I was expecting this claim to be reimbursed into my bank account last week, and now I've got to get on the phone and wait another 10 days. Again, it's just people didn't understand that it was there. And my privilege working in this business is that I can call the head of claims. I can call the director up. I can call the product manager up. I can be like, is this covered? What's this mean? How's that work? I can do all that. And I still struggle. So, if you're trans or you're non-binary and you've had issues with this in submitting your claim, in the process, the procedure, whatever it is, just resubmit. Call them, resubmit, and keep advocating for yourself in this situation. It might be that the person you're talking to just doesn't know enough. It might be that they haven't properly coded their system when you upload it through the app. That's happened. And even when you write the code on the receipt, they still decline the claim. This has happened to me too. So, it can be super difficult, super challenging. And so I think it's super important, for organizations to have resource groups, for all sorts of marginalized and disenfranchised people. And just have the resources out there, whether it be, as a benefit consultant, maybe have it on your website. As the insurance carrier, have it easily accessible. As the employer, put it on your company intranet, and just have the ability to let people seek the information out themselves so they don't have to out themselves, but then also have it be really clear so there's no question or concern or misunderstanding about what is and what isn't covered. So a common thing I hear from people all over the place is that these benefits are just cosmetic. Why should my benefit dollars go towards something like this? 43% of trans people attempt suicide. I started this video with a 1-800 number for the Trans Lifeline, like for trans people who are in need of help. I'm going to close the video with the same number, again, for trans and non-binary people in need of help. It can be really difficult. And access to gender affirmation benefits is one really easy way that you're able to make an immediate impact in someone's life in a way that is essential to their health and well-being. These are benefits that alleviate gender dysphoria, and I've talked about that in this video already, what that is. They improve mental health outcomes. We understand as benefits professionals what the impact is of depression and anxiety on long-term disability claims. We know what the impact is on the cost of benefit plans. This is one real easy way, again, to help people to improve their mental health, to improve their overall health. I haven't gone into much detail about the different procedures that are covered, whether that be, rhinoplasty, facial feminization, surgery, brow reduction. I think there's surgeries to reduce your shoulders now. I even saw a surgery recently of someone who was having their foot shrunk. Although, there's lots of things out there. The availability of coverage is going to vary from employer to employer and from insurance company to insurance company. I've used it for hair removal, facial hair removal. I know people who have used it for vocal feminization surgery. People have used it for facial feminization surgery. Feel free, if you're watching this near the end here, feel free to leave a comment how you've used gender affirmation benefits in your workplace, how you've found it useful to your mental health, your overall well-being. But through this video, I just wanted to provide a primer, if you will, for people kind of at this intersection of the consultant, the plan sponsor, and the plan member for trans and non-binary people. What is out there, what's available, why it's important, and as well, in the comments, perhaps just leave a resource, an evergreen resource, if you will, of what's out there. What's available, and I'll keep providing links, updating as much as I can. At time of recording, I know it's available. We'll see over the years to come what is and isn't available. So if you made it this far, if you found any value in this, please like. If you have a moment, subscribe. If you've enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate that. And ultimately, take this information and look to organize and advocate in your own workplace. Employee resource groups are a great way to do that. There's lots of resources out there. Pride at Work Canada has a Thrive program. They have other resources, networking events, that sort of thing that might help in your journey. So thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been valuable. And as always, here's to life.